What's going on, guys? Welcome to another episode of the Cartoon Conference here on the channel. In the last episode, we went ahead and we talked about regular show, definitely It and Adventure Time, very dear to my heart. So now we're going to talk about a show that was definitely a lot more of a short run, but still definitely meant a lot to me. Very unique, stuck out a lot. Yes, I'm talking about Gravity Falls. Like, it was always just such a good show to me. I remember when it first came on, I think I was going into seventh grade, so it's kind of stuck out a bit to me. And I remember being on the bus and talking about it with one of my friends every now and then. And again, it really just kind of stuck out because it just felt like they kind of did things that, I don't know, it felt kind of like a regular cartoon back then, but it's like as I got older, I'm like, wow, it feels like they're really doing some deep stuff. Like, I really appreciated the idea that so many things, like, there were so many hidden things in there that really, like, you really kind of had to be smart and clever to notice and figure out. I mean, obviously I didn't pay attention to that stuff with Jack, but I mean, it was still really cool, the fact that they put in so much detail, all those little hidden things. Like, that's something that you just don't really see in that many cartoons nowadays. And I remember for a while I actually kind of phased out of it because they had such a long gap between the two seasons. But then I remember I was in high school and the second season came out, and then one of my friends was talking about it. I'm like, "Yo, wait, like be careful. This actually sounds pretty good, but don't spoil anything. Let me get caught up." So I remember just spending a bunch of time getting caught up on the show, just watching the episodes that I'd missed out on, and I was like, "Yo, this is good." And then, because I think the season was also like halfway over by the time I got into it again, and like that shit was just so cool. I just really enjoyed it. I thought that it was really interesting seeing some of the villains like Gideon, where it's like, oh, he's just a little kid, but he's like so hell bent on power, and then someone like Bill, where it's like, oh, he's just pure evil, really. Like, he's crazy in like a whimsical kind of way, but he's also just pure evil. I remember like probably a couple weeks ago I looked up a list of most evil cartoon characters ever. I think like number 12 on the list was Bill Cipher, and I was just like, yeah, because I was just very glad to see that even a show like Gravity Falls, like someone like Bill sticks out so much because he's such a unique character. And I love how there's the special from after the show ended, Between the Pines, where Alex Hirsch was being interviewed, and he's like, "Oh, we basically just got the idea for Bill Cipher by saying, oh, what if we took the triangle from the back of the dollar bill and just basically put a top hat and a bow tie on him?" Like, I thought that was a pretty funny idea. Just the fact they took something so simple and just made it so complex, I guess. And then I love the characters all around, really. Like Dipper, he's someone where he's so young, but he's also so smart for his age. Like, there's the episode where they were trying to figure out who murdered Wax Stan, and then the police didn't really care what he had to say. They're like, oh, he's just a kid, he doesn't know any better. But it turns out he was able to figure it out. And then you even see him outsmart Wax Sherlock Holmes. I felt like that was just such a good proof of how smart Dipper can actually be. And then the moments whenever you see him try to prove his manliness, I guess. Well, not necessarily just his manliness, but his bravery. Like, really trying to step up. I really admire those. Like, whenever those manitors told him to go kill the multi-bear, and he's like, nah, I can't do that. He's just a normal guy. Like, you shouldn't have to kill something just to prove that you're a man. And then how Stan even kind of congratulated him on that, saying, hey, you know what? You did what was right, even if people didn't agree with it. That's pretty manly, if you ask me. And then seeing him try to get over certain things with Wendy because for so long he had a crush on her, seeing him handle that, like, oh, maybe, well, first of all, how he got to the point of, let me just approach this more rationally and let me not just try to be so obsessive about it. And then eventually how he tried to actually move on from Wendy because he kind of came to terms with the idea of, yeah, it's not going to work out with her. He still had feelings for her, but he knew that it was never going to work out, which I feel like there were moments I could relate to that where, I mean, I've been into plenty of girls in my lifetime. It's not too long of a lifetime, but I'm not gonna lie. I've been into a good amount of girls, but I've always known with them, so many of them, it's like, yeah, I know it's never gonna work out, so that's why I don't really try too hard. Because it's like, oh, they already have a boyfriend or some shit. I'm getting away from myself, but I just like the moments like that with the character development for Dipper, and then someone like Mabel, where it's like, I feel like I'm gonna be honest, I probably do like Dipper a lot more than Mabel, but I mean, just for so many reasons, I feel like in so many ways I'd relate more to Dipper. But with Mabel, I like the fact that she's always so laid back, like she always tries to look for the brighter side of things, and then how in the end, like she'll still be there for Dipper because like she'll take the time to realize, oh, Dipper has sacrificed so much for me. It's about time I do that for him too. And I really love near the finale whenever she's in Mabel Land, and then Dipper kind of goes on like his long speech about how they need to stick through life together because she's like, no, I don't want to go. Like everything's changing, and I also get that. Just sometimes change is really hard to accept, especially when it feels like everything is going all at once. But then whenever again Dipper convinced her saying like, hey, let's approach this together, like we're going into the unknown but we can do this together. Just and then how Wendy even said, I've seen very impressive things, but the two of you working together is the most impressive thing I've ever seen. And I just really like that moment there. And I also love the idea that Dipper and Mabel are based off of Alex Hirsch and his twin, saying, oh, I wrote Gravity Falls basically as a way of the way I wanted our summers to go, because he's like, oh, our summers were usually pretty boring. So I wanted to write Gravity Falls as a way of, I wish that's how our summers went. Because I mean, let's face it, like as a little kid, y'all want to have that really amazing summer full of adventure and mysteries and excitement. So I think it's really fun having Gravity Falls like that, where it really kind of challenges you for that. It's not just something like I'm not trying to talk crap about Phineas and Ferb at all, but it's like Phineas and Ferb. It's like it's all laid back stuff, but then you have Gravity Falls, where it's like there's a lot of action and adventure, but there's also a lot of risk and danger in it as well. Like there's a lot of things at risk throughout the plot of the show. Like the whole idea of I mentioned Gideon and Bill, like Gideon, how he was trying to get the journals because he's like, yeah, I want to rule the town, and then Bill, how he's like, I want to escape because I basically want to cause Weird Mageddon. So it's like, yeah, they're trying to have fun, but then after Ford showed up, Dipper and Ford are like, yeah, we really need to work hard to try to prevent Bill from winning. So even in episodes that felt a bit more filler like, you could still feel that serious threat. And then there are other characters, obviously, like Seuss. I like the idea that Seuss is always there for someone. I also remember, because there's also the special where Alex Hirsch was like, oh, Seuss was basically based off of some guy that he knew in school, where he would always be in the computer lab, and then he would always be offering if he could help fix something for you, which I feel like that was pretty good for Seuss, where even though Seuss seems like he's pretty simple-minded, he might not seem the smartest, he's always there to help out. And then I'll tell you what though, like one of the things that really hits hard so much is in the episode Blendins Game, when back in time, Dipper and Mabel see why Seuss hates his birthday, and it turns out it's because his father never shows up. I've seen that scene a few times, and I'm like, oh my gosh, that actually really hurts. I mean, I can't relate to it, but that really hurts though, just watching that, because like Seuss is just such a nice guy, but to see him have to kind of carry that on his shoulders really kind of hurts a bit. And then how later in that episode you kind of see why he actually even looks up to Stan like a father figure, because he went to return a screwdriver to the Mystery Shack, and then Stan gave him a job, he gave him a shirt. So that's why he really looks up to Stan and kind of always stands up for him, because like I said, he sees him like a father figure because Stan's really the first one who kind of gave him that much attention. And then obviously Stan, the fact that he's just kind of this old guy for the first season, it's like, oh, he has like he's not really doing anything. I mean, they kind of hinted at it that he was up to something, but for the most part, it seems like Stan's not really doing anything. And then season two, it's like, oh wow, Stan's actually really into some serious stuff now. How you see he's actually trying to collect all the journals as well. And then in the episode Now What He Seems, they think that Stan's actually trying to destroy the world. And then like I just love that climactic moment of Dipper saying, no, I can't trust you. Like Seuss and Dipper are both against Stan, and then Stan's trying to tell Mabel like, please believe me, I'm not a bad guy. And like just that climactic moment of it's all up to Mabel, what's she gonna say? And then I'm pretty sure I also read that that climactic moment was also based off of the anime Fooly Cooly, which I enjoyed when I watched it. So finding that out, I was like, oh, I could kind of see that. So I was pretty interested in that. And then just the fact that they reveal out of nowhere Stan as a twin brother, and then the fact they even joked about that in another episode where it's like, oh man, he has a twin brother. Oh man, I predicted that like a year ago. I thought that was pretty cool. And then the whole background of Stan and his brother, how you find out they were actually a lot like Dipper and Mabel, where one of them was a lot more laid back and had fun, and then one was a lot more serious and smart, but they were inseparable. Just the fact they made that parallel there. I'm not trying to be like, oh, you have to be super smart to see it, because I feel like it is kind of right there, but even so, I still enjoy it. And then how at one point Stan and Ford were even saying, oh wow, Dipper and Mabel are a lot like us. I hope they'd ever get driven away like we did. And then they were saying, oh, it's because they're kids, they don't know any better. But then you see that Dipper and Mabel really do have that special bond that never seems to break. And then the whole idea of Ford, I really like him as a character. First of all, he's voiced by J.K. Simmons. You know, that's J. Jonah Jameson right there, like the one true, the one and only. So that was definitely a very interesting part for me. And then kind of seeing him come in like an action guy, where it's like, oh yeah, he can be kind of nerdy, but he's also really smart and can do a lot of things that really push the plot of the show. Where it's like, oh, now Dipper. It's like Dipper was looking for the author for so long, and here it is. Not only has he found him, he's related to him. And I like the idea of how whenever Ford disappeared, like no one in Gravity Falls knew him that much, so they saw Stan and they thought that he was Ford, so that's why he started going by Stanford. So then, like, even after that, you see some people refer to him as Stanford, like Bud and Gideon, people like that. And then Wendy, obviously, like I really like Wendy. First of all, she's voiced by Linda Cardellini, very cool person, very great actress. And then I just love the fact that Wendy's so laid back. Like, she just does all these cool things. Everyone really likes her. They all think that she's really cool. But then how she's always someone that you can really depend on. And the fact that even though Dipper kind of had a crush on her, she's like, oh, I kind of always knew, but she knew that Dipper was such a great person. And she was even like, oh, well, not word for word, but she thought that Dipper was actually a lot cooler than a lot of people she knew, because he was so smart and he was always looking for adventure versus some of her other friends who are just kind of out to party. She really liked the idea that Dipper can be like a really nice guy. And then I gotta talk about the finale. Whenever, first of all, you see her just beat up Gideon and all of his prison friends like that. That was hilarious. And then whenever you see them drive away, and then Dipper's just like, Wendy, you're the coolest person I know. Like, not even saying that because he has a crush, just like stating that as a fact. And then she's like, I know, dude. And then side note about that, whenever you see Dipper and Wendy driving through the alternate finales, and you actually see Jason Ritter and Linda Cardellini dressed up as their characters, that moment was really funny. I just really like that. There's just so many great moments in this show. It's so good. And then, like I said, the puzzles, like the fact that obviously all those puzzles, they would just totally go over my head. But then Alex Hirsch is like, oh, like 15 minutes after the episode would air, people would already be tweeting about how they solved the puzzles. And then he's just like, oh, let's up the ante. So you see him kind of go a lot further into it. Just all the little things that you can use to figure out. And then even after the show ended, how Alex Hirsch created the Cypher Hunt, which is like this big worldwide treasure hunt or some kind that all these people entered. And I'm like, the fact that so many people get involved with the show, they'll do so much, crack so many codes, travel so far, work together for so long. The fact that something as simple as Gravity Falls means so much. And then there's obviously all the little characters like Pacifica, how she kind of just starts off being super snide and thinks she's better than everyone. But then you see her kind of grow out from her family's reputation. She kind of becomes a better person. She doesn't have problems interacting with Dipper and Mabel. She kind of stands up to her parents. And then someone like Gideon, where he's basically just a total brat. Like, he can just completely control his dad. His mom is terrified of him. He just wants to rule everything. And then he's like, from now on, I'm going to be widow old Gideon, regular old kid. But then apparently he still has his prison friends. And then, I don't know, just all the tiny characters that play a big role. Well, not a big role, but all the little characters that help to make the show what it is. Very supportive, adds on a lot. And then just Like this is one of those scenes that I feel like will always start to make me tear up a bit in the finale. Whenever you think that Ford actually made a deal with Bill to spare the kids, but then you find out that Stan and him actually switched clothes. So Stan was willing to sacrifice his own mind just to get rid of Bill. So I love how you see him stand up to Bill saying like, "Oh, you're a really smart guy, but you made a big mistake messing with my family." And then you see him punch Bill and get rid of him, saying like, "Oh, I was fine. Like I guess I did do something good." I just really like that the fact that Stan kind of acknowledges I've never done anything good with my life, but he's glad that he got to do that. But then how he was able to regain his memories, so happy ending there. And then the long goodbye scene with everyone there. Well, first of all, the fact that Seuss got to become the new owner of the Mystery Shack, I really like that because of you see how much it means to Seuss. And then how like you even see him kind of tell off Stan saying like, "Oh, this place is magical. Yeah, the attractions might be fake, but the memories here are real." Like how he's so upset at the idea of the Mystery Shack closing. And then like I was about to say, the long goodbye where Mabel's saying goodbye to Candy and Grenda, saying thank you for making this such a good summer. Like those were people that she just met that summer, but they already became her best friends. And then you see like Stan, how he kind of says, "Oh, you kids were a nuisance, and I'm glad to get rid of you." But that's just like his way of saying "I love you" because he's not good at expressing emotions. And then how Mabel almost had to leave behind Waddles, but then Stan's just like, "Hey, bus guy, the pig's coming with him." And then you see him pull out brass knuckles, and Ford pulls out a laser gun. And I love Dipper's whole monologue at the very end, where it's like, "Oh, Gravity Falls is like some tiny little town. Like you may not have heard of it, but feel like you should check it out. Like it's somewhere out there in the woods, and there's a lot of mysteries and adventure waiting for you there." It was just very good to me, I suppose. And again, this is just one of those shows where there's really not that much to say that I dislike because I feel like it's one of those. It's kind of the same idea of how they ended Breaking Bad, really, where oh yeah, it could have gone on for like twice as long as it did, but for those kinds of shows, they decided to end it when they did because they didn't want it to go on for so long that it would just be boring and that it would get canceled. Like Alex Hirsch said, no, the show's not being canceled, it's being ended because we feel like we've reached a natural point where we can finish off the plot. Like he wanted to, like Alex Hirsch had a specific idea in mind for how he wanted to end the show, and he's like, you know what? I think we're at that point now where we can do it. I don't want the show to go on for like twice as long, where it gets boring, people aren't paying attention, the show's just not what it used to be, and then it just gets canceled. He wanted to end it the way he did, and I really respect that. I think that's a very good integrity move right there. But the fact that he also kind of left it open ended, where he's like, the story's done, but it could still continue at some point. The fact that he did leave it slightly open ended for a return, possibly, which I would 100% be down for. If it's a good enough plot, I'd be down for it, and I think it would definitely be really good because Alex Hirsch isn't the kind of guy who's just gonna cave on it, be like, "Oh well, let's just do it because everyone wants to." It'd be like, no, because he has a genuinely good idea and he knows how he wants it to go down. I don't know. There's really not too much I could say I dislike. I would say maybe just some of the episodes it just feels like it's a bit off. I don't know. I'd say some things I didn't really like would be if they had episodes that focused on Mabel trying to look for romance. I mean, I did like the idea that he kind of did that to make fun of his sister always being into guys, but I don't know. Those kinds of episodes, like I'm not saying oh I don't like them because they didn't help the plot. I was just never really interested in that because it just felt like it would be weird to have so many episodes that felt like they focused so much on Mabel being into a boy. I feel like in a way it just felt a little slow to me, but even so, I kind of like the reasoning behind why they would do that. And then I don't know, can't really think of that much more. I would really say I dislike. I guess some episodes, if they did kind of feel like filler, they made it a bit slow. But even so, I could still get some good laughs out of it. I mean, that's the thing though. Like, it's such a short show where it's really hard to find too many faults because you could tell they really put their all into it. I mean, they're all really good characters, definitely good cast that they have lined up for it. To me, it definitely was just a very special show. I remember it's probably like about a month ago, maybe even less. I was just scrolling through Instagram and then I saw a clip from it. I'm like, oh man, this is so funny. So then I went back and watched that episode and I said, you know what? Screw it. I'm just going to watch the whole series again. And it really didn't take me that long. I watched several episodes a day. It was just so much fun. I really did enjoy it. And I remember like it was one weekend, we had a bunch of people over here. They were all hanging out at the pool. I'm thinking to myself, screw it. I'm going to finish Gravity Falls because I think I was down to just the finale. I'm like, I don't have any problem with it. Like, I'm just having a good time. I mean, I don't think anyone ever noticed. I don't think they really called me out, but again, it's just a really good show. I like the fact that kind of along with regular show, it's one of those shows where yeah, the main audience is kids, but there's a bunch of things in there that adults can enjoy. So I feel like that's why even now it's one of those shows that I can go back and watch from start to finish, not just watch it episodically, just jumping around. It's like, hey, I can start at episode one and finish all the way at the finale. So can't really think of that much more I really wanted to say, except for I guess Blendon Blandon. That guy is just hilarious. Like, you need to be careful what you say. Like, you need to watch your time mouth. Like, I just love the episode Blendon's Game. Honestly, it's just so funny. Just Justin Roiland as Blendon Blandon. It's like, oh, what was your name again? Blondin, Blendo, Blar Blar. That's it. Blendon Benjamin Blandon. Oh, my time knee. Oh, time, dang it. Oh my gosh. I remember, like, I don't know if I saw it personally, but I remember one of my friends was saying that he saw this theory somewhere that Blendon Blandon is like actually a version of Morty from Rick and Morty that got abandoned by his Rick, and that's why he sounds just like him and why he acts all awkward, but then he also kind of has access to like this futuristic technology, which obviously that's probably not true, but I mean, it is kind of funny though, especially because they do have those connections with Rick and Morty. Like obviously the one where some of the stuff that Stan had in his hand went into the portal and then it came out, like all those items came out in another portal in Rick and Morty. I'm pretty sure that Alex Hirsch even said, "Oh yeah, we just did that to have fun." Like, I mean, I remember my friend and I would even talk about, "Oh, it'd be cool if they did a Rick and Morty crossover between that and Gravity Falls, where it's like, oh, Ford during his travels actually encountered Morty or Rick. That'd be pretty cool." Oh well, it's probably not gonna happen in my lifetime. Well, I guess if it didn't happen in my lifetime, it wouldn't happen in the voice actor's lifetime either. But again, great show. Definitely worth watching. I definitely really do enjoy it. For something that's such a short show, it really does so many great things. So, yeah, that's going to go ahead and wrap things up here. I hope you enjoyed. Gravity Falls, definitely a really great show. If you haven't seen it, then check it out. Although I'm guessing if you clicked on the video, that means you have seen it. But if you haven't, then I'm sorry. I just spoiled like every single thing that's important about the show. But okay, I'll see you guys in the next one. Talk about more cartoons. And yeah, bye. Peace.